with the DOJ when this is all finalized after we approve maps in December and it's given the final nod by the Board of Supervisors.
We were not planning on submitting anything to the Department of Justice.
No, as I understand it, that's no longer required. And I don't even know if the Justice Department would want to receive the documents, but you certainly could inquire in their voting rights section if they think it would be advisable.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the board, County Counsel Les Gerard. Yeah, a number of years ago, the Department of Justice asked us not to keep sending things to them because it was no longer required. I do believe we have continued to send them, but again, it's not required. And I don't think their position has changed recently on that.
Right, and I know our elections office was submitting any changes made to polling places and other electoral changes. They were submitting it just to continue to meet that spirit of the law, even though it wasn't required. And I think it was appreciated by everyone to make sure we weren't making any changes that had an adverse impact on minority voters in Monterey County. So thank you for that clarification. And I know on the next phase here of looking at maps and trying to utilize that input we have from the community, one of the requirements made that needs to be made to the public was some mapping tools, so that if community members wanted to submit their own concepts for maps, that we have that technology available on our website, so they could have some mapping capability to be able to submit it with any comments that they have. Have we achieved that yet? Do we have that technological capability for the community to utilize as a tool in this next mapping process?
It's not online yet, but it's in process. So we've submitted all the information and to the mapping software company. And so we're waiting for them to get back to us. As you can imagine, because everything is so condensed, they have a backlog of requests, but we are in the queue.
Thank you. I'm glad we're working on it, and it's understandable that every local government and is going through this at exactly the same time nationally. I think that the last one, just in response to the report, on the population changes, they seemed within that margin of 10%. So just preliminarily, before even going to a mapping process, do we expect much changes? It seems like the districts will largely remain the same, perhaps some small changes but what do you, based on the data, what is your opinion on how the districts might change overall?
This is really up to the commission, and we will certainly show them a minimum change plan or plans, and of course explore alternatives that they may wish to consider, but they're running the process. The commission is running the process, and we're helping them with it.
Great. Thank you for that and deferring to letting the commission do that. I think it was a point well taken, and I think some of the hearings just about Salinas being carved up into 4 supervisorial districts at this time. I got the majority of the city limits, but the other 3 parts of Salinas do get divvied up into 3 other supervisorial districts. So that was one of the most interesting comments. I know it's not a new one. It comes every 10 years, the configuration of the 4 supervisorial districts, but to hear the comments from the community about whether 2 makes sense to cover Salinas or continuing the way it is, I think that's going to be a main point to further analyze in this process these next 2.5 months or a couple months. With that, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from the Board of Supervisors or the redistricting commissioners? If you could raise your hand. Oh, yes, right here.
I have a quick question. Is the PowerPoint that you presented available online for the public, or that information?
It will be.
It will be? Okay.
Great. So the PowerPoint will be available, and I believe the videos of some of the public hearings are also available online.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I know we re-recorded the one that, or live streamed the one that was held in District 4, so that is available. I have one more question before we move on to our next item. On the slide where you spoke about the different changes, the growth that in each of the districts from 2010 to 2020, and as you're thinking about recommendations for changes, for potential map changes to the districts, are there also consideration about projected growth within each district over the next 10 years so that we don't end up growing out and then having to contract back again immediately? And I just asked that question because I know that there are some, big conversations happening around growth in South County. I'm most familiar with District 4, and we have some housing developments at Campus Town, Cypress Knolls, Marina Station, the build out of East Garrison that would represent potential ongoing growth in the district. How does that get accounted for in the thinking about where boundaries may shift in the future?
Well, we do have to use the census data that we have, the official redistricting data. But within that, if you desire and the commission desires, we can make the supervisorial districts that are expected to have growth to be smaller in population. So we have some leeway. So they could be, say, 3% below the ideal or 4%, even 5% below the ideal as we're drawing it. That's about the only thing we can do to take that into account. So if you would like us to do that, that would be something to direct us to do, or the commission can direct us to do.
Yeah, I think it was more out of curiosity than anything else. As I think about, we have the 2010 population data, the 2020 population data, and if there was some sense of what a 2030 population data may look like, I wouldn't have expected the changes that happened between 2010 and 2020. So maybe that is something that's projectable, but maybe if I'd known that it would change the way that it did, I would have definitely supported the decisions that they made back in 2010. It's hard to look into the future 10 years and know exactly what's going to play out. So, all right, Supervisor Adams.
Thank you, Chair Redistricting. I do just have one question, and that is, during the time of the census, there was a lot of community concern over undocumented individuals not being counted in the census. And I'm wondering if your data reflect that at all, or if we have any additional information on that should make us be conscious of adjusting the lines in some way.
Well, again, we have to use the official data, even if we know there are undercounts. But like the housing growth, if there was one supervisorial district that we thought was undercounted in particular, you could direct us to try and make that supervisorial district smaller in population. I know Rosemary Soto here was instrumental in helping to get out the count with the census data. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yes, I don't know that I would have any information in addition to what you've just shared in regards to the breakdown of the final census count. We are still sifting through a lot of that data to be able to tell us a bit more about, where in the county did we have the most undercount by population specifics, such as the undocumented individuals or families. Yeah.
And Jean, you have your hand raised. Did you want to add to that?
Yes, we've had this discussion during past rounds of the county's redistricting, and people have said that there was going to be housing growth here and the old Fort Ord property, but it never seems to materialize in exactly the way that people think it will. If it does happen at all, it seems that housing growth and population growth from new housing is difficult to predict because, among other things, it's subject to the market, and it's really hard to anticipate recessions and things like that slow down the construction and added population. So this has been discussed before, and believe me, we've tried to do that for a lot of our clients, but it really rarely seems to work well. But if the commission wishes, we will certainly explore that again. And we can, as Shelley said, make supervisorial districts less populous if people are convinced there's going to be more population growth in certain districts and not so much in others, just as the undercount, as Shelley said too. I think that was discussed 10 years ago and maybe 20 years ago as well, that the districts that were likely to have more undocumented or uncounted people, not just undocumented, but uncounted population, they could be made a little smaller just to, well, if people wanted to, that could happen. In other words, I have to say that having been with you, as Shelley has, since 1990 or 91, we've seen a lot of this happening before. And so that's why we're hedging some of our answers to your questions. And of course, we will work with the commission to answer their questions fully so that they will make informed decisions to report to you.
Great, thank you. Let's take it out to public comment for anyone who's joining us. And once again, for anyone who's watching live on Zoom or watching live on YouTube or Facebook, you're also welcome to join the Zoom webinar at 224-397-747 to share public comment. I don't see any hands raised for public comment, but we'll do another call for public comment. All right, I don't see any public comment, so we'll close public comment on this portion of the presentation and bring it back. We've got a comment from Supervisor Phillips.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the commission for all the work they're doing for us, and we appreciate it, and thank you for your service, including two of my former colleagues. So thank you.
All right, and with that, I don't believe there's any action required on this item, so we will accept the report and move on to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll move now to agenda item number 5, a summary of the public hearing testimony that was heard at 5 separate community meetings discussing communities of interest. And I want to thank the staff very much for organizing these. They were there was the opportunity for people to attend in person as well as online, and it worked very smoothly. It was quite impressive. And several commissioners attended all or several of the different public meetings held throughout the county. Our job was to listen. And so the commissioners from the district where the meeting was held, of course, were present, but the rest of the commissioners were encouraged to attend as well if we could, so that we could get the flavor of what people were saying in the different communities. So we're going to go through each district. There has been a designated spokesperson who also, I believe, was the same person who led the meeting in the community. And each of these commissioners is going to take 3 to 5 minutes to relay what they heard in terms of the public testimony. And before I open it up for Commissioner Carrillo from District 1, I'll just check to see if Ms. Soto has anything she'd like to say before we launch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the only thing I would like to say is that I'd like to congratulate all of the commissioners who did so well with this first round of hybrid public hearings. And I would also want to give a special shout out to our staff, Vanessa Acevedo, as well as Annie Brereton, who were a big part of that process and bringing it all to fruition. Supervisors, I also would like to inform you that all of your appointed commissioners were deeply engaged and involved in crafting and designing how these public hearings would come about. And so I think there's the success of the hearings are really due to the dedication and commitment of your commissioners. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Carrillo.
Thank you, Rosemary. Madam Chair Parker and Madam Chair Askew, thank you so much for having us here and an opportunity to give back some information on what we heard during our public hearing. So in District 1, myself, Commissioner Sergio Sanchez and Commissioner Ernesto Gonzalez were in attendance for the public hearing held on September 14th, 2021 at Jesse Sanchez Elementary School in Salinas, California. There were 3 members of the public in attendance online, 2 members of the public were in attendance in person, and there were 8 additional members present both online and in person that were either county staff or presenters. Specific communities of interest were discussed as it relates to a question from one member of the public regarding why the city of Salinas is split into 4 districts. The member of the public made comments that the city of Salinas is the only city in the county that is split, and that splitting the city of Salinas is a violation of line item number 3 under the Fair Maps Act, splitting minority communities. Discussion regarding this topic continued by staff regarding the history or what happened 10 years ago and why the current boundaries were drawn and why the city of Salinas is split into 4 districts. Additional discussions continued by commissioners regarding the history of the splitting, and also on the other side of that is the packing of a particular district with a minority that could also possibly dilute the minority's voice in the other districts is another, at least the history that they were sharing. Another member of the public made comments regarding how much flexibility the commission has as it relates to the 7 factors of the Fair Maps Act. And since the population factor is the driving factor, and on the other hand, the packing of the districts and the tension that might come up amongst those 2 perspectives. And would like to see what that wanted to know that if we have the ability to weigh in on one of the other items as it relates to population. Final comment was made regarding a member of the public asked if Soledad prison inmates were counted in the 2011 census. And the issue was clarified by the demographers regarding them being counted, but by the census, but not being included in the redistricting. The public comments outlined are the ones that were brought up during the public hearing. There were additional comments regarding using the 10% variance to preserve those communities that have common interests that should have a higher priority than equal population. That concludes the summary of District 1 public hearing on communities of interest. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Carrillo. And just for the attendees' information, what we'll do is we'll go through each of the district report outs, and then I will invite questions from supervisors, other commissioners, and the public. So we'll move now to District 2, and I believe the spokesperson there is Commissioner Tanzi.
Good evening, supervisors and my fellow commissioners. My name is Steve Tanzi. I'm here to report back on the Community of Interest public hearing held September 20th at the Gonzona Library in Castroville. In attendance were all of our supervisors, choices for commissioners, myself, Cosme Padilla, and Vincent Ferrante. We also had our alternate there, Sister Rosa Dolores was online. We had pretty good turnout. We had 15 members of the public attending, 13 which were actually in person in the library with us. And we had, I felt, pretty good response. Some of the more, what seemed to be the most important things to the people that were in the building and online that were commenting were to help keep the community and District 2 rural, keep North County whole, try not to split it off into other districts, of course, and protect our minority community. And the one very important thing was to reduce the impact of the metropolitan area on District 2. The trying to reduce the people who live within the city of Salinas from being in District 2. It's 2 very different kinds of lifestyle and very different needs. There was a question that asked to include Castroville in the district out of the unincorporated area. into the city of Salinas, the demographers responded to that, and that's nearly impossible without really changing every single district. And it didn't really seem to make sense. We also had, thank you, Rosemary. By the way, I want to thank Rosemary. She put this together and did a great job. Thank you very much. Questions about future boundaries were, we had some questions about that. Things that cross over between Santa Cruz and Monterey County in North Monterey County, Pot Road specifically, school districts, and things that really we can't affect as commissioners for supervisorial districts. We had some discussion on the Salinas City Council, and of course, we have no effect on that. The other thing that they felt was very important is to keep the process very transparent and having everything we do online, and that is all available. We've made it, did our best to make sure that people understood how they could access that information, how they could see every meeting and help and attend each meeting. The summarization, the consensus was to keep North County rural, keep the unincorporated part of the county together, and limit the residents from the city of Salinas included in District 2. That was a big theme in our meeting and seemed very important to the people that were there. That concludes the summary for District 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Tanzi. We'll move now to District 3, Commissioner David Kong.
Thank you. For District 3, here's my report. Also, I wanted to thank the staff the night of our communities of interest meeting for having a wonderful setup for the location. It was great, and everyone was made it into a great event. So I will now give you the District 3 report. Commissioners David Kong, Simone Salinas, and Steve McDougall, and Chair Jane Parker attended the public hearing held on Friday, September 17th in the city of Greenfield at the City Hall chambers. Chair Jane Parker attended remotely. The other 3 commissioners were in person. A total of 14 people were in attendance, 9 staff, 4 commissioners, 2 members of the public. Both members of the public attended remotely, and no members of the public attended in person. The 2 members of public that attended remotely were Margie Kay from District 4 and Sharon Miller from District 5. There was a brief introduction by the 3 commissioners before staff reports on the redistricting process and a mapping demonstration by staff. There, the results of the public testimony were: specific communities of interest identified were none. Questions about current and future boundaries were asked, none. General discussion included. A technical question was asked by Sharon Miller, which she suggested that the online mapping tools have a step-by-step instructions to help the users to draw their maps easier. This concludes the summary for District 3, public hearing on the communities of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kong. And for District 4, I am the lucky one, and you're the lucky ones who get to hear me deliver the report. So in District 4, all 3 commissioners, Annalisa Mitchell, Maria Magana, and myself attended the public hearing in person. It was held on September 27th at the Marina Library. There were 10 members of the public in attendance, 4 at the library and 6 on Zoom. The supervisor from the district was present via Zoom, and several commissioners also attended. 2 members of the public gave testimony about their community. Both live in Salinas and spoke about the residents' diversity of languages, ages, income levels, and backgrounds, and how much the speakers appreciated the ways neighbors look out for each other and keep the neighborhood clean. One of those speakers expressed the sentiment that District 4, the way the lines are drawn, it's fine. Although if there were some tweaks needed, the areas around Market Street in Salinas or the Toro Park area might be appropriate to consider. There was another commissioner from a different district suggested that Las Palmas and Spreckles might have more in common with similar types of neighborhoods in District 5 than in District 3. Another member of the public raised a concern about the possibility that giving added weight to communities of interest might set off a new kind of gerrymandering. And the demographers responded that any changes made to district lines to accommodate communities of interest would go through an analysis of trade-offs, which helps to avoid the problem that the member of the public was concerned about. There were several questions from the public about the ages of people counted, how college students are accounted for, how prisoners figure into the counts, and whether homeless people were included. Responses to those questions were provided by the demographers and staff. Overall, it was a good meeting with clear interest and engagement by the public. And thanks again to the staff for putting the community meetings together and to the public for participating. And now we'll move to District 5 and Commissioner Lau.
Hello, I apologize in advance for not having submitted it in time, but I will provide my report now for District 5. All three commissioners were present, Shanika Jones-Farek and Commissioner Amy Sands. Commissioner Parker was present online. The meeting was held at 353 Camino El Estero in Monterey on September 28th, 2021. There were 18 attendees, 8 in person, 3 of which were Monterey County staff and 1 translator, 3 art commissioners, and 1 member of the public at large. There were 10 virtual participants, of which Commissioner Parker was 1. There were no community members from South County present, and we discussed this might be an area of outreach. The meeting was called to order at 6:08. We listened to the presentation from Lapkoff and Gobele after introductions. Following the opening discussions, it was clear to many that the city boundaries of most of the peninsula cities were clear. Several of the virtual attendees had questions related specifically to the process of redistricting, which was answered by staff and the commissioners present. One question specifically was if there was a possibility of an undercount related to COVID, if there was any legal penalty for not meeting the 10% variance, are existing boundaries and community districts held to a higher priority than geographical distinctions? If one map is presented, is there a path for supervisors to decide something different? This was followed by a discussion on the ARC role as it is advisory. Is coastal protection of the Carmel River a factor? And when will the maps be available? It was a very good discussion. We had members who were very engaged. And I think it speaks to us having continued outreach. There was genuine interest in having the maps presented and when that would be the case. And I think there will be some follow-up with that from some of the people from the public who were present. I would like to say that the League of Women Voters, I'm not a member, but I did read it today, is having a redistricting, why and how you can use your superpowers during the process as a public free meeting tomorrow at noon. I'm unable to attend, but I just thought I would share that with the group. Thank you. And that concludes the report from District 5.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lau. That concludes the report out from the districts on the communities of interest. So I will go now to any of the Board of Supervisors who might have questions for any of the spokespeople from the district. I see the hand of Chair Askew raised.
I just want to comment on how challenging it can be to run these joint hybrid meetings, but I really appreciated the way that the commission has gone above and beyond to make participation possible for people, whether it's via Zoom or whether it's in person. I feel like that commitment has been loud and clear, and I really enjoyed being able to participate in the District 4 meeting that was held at the Marina Library. I was on Zoom, but it was a rich conversation, a lot of great information. And I do think that there is a lot of interest from the community, whether people are showing up in our meetings or whether they're consuming the information in alternative spaces. So once the maps do become available, I think that there is quite a bit of opportunity to do some more public outreach to let people know how they can make their voices heard as we consider some of these options that are available to us. So thank you again for everyone putting them on.
Thank you for those comments. Let's see, Supervisor Phillips, I see your hand is up. Is that newly or formerly?
I think it's a legacy hand.
I think
No.
perhaps. What?
Yeah, that was a legacy hand. Sorry.
It's very distinguished legacy there. Okay, Supervisor Adams, you're up.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank the advisory redistricting commissioners who had to commit so much time and energy to make an impact on the community. I really thank all of you. It's to do all of this is just extremely important, and I'm really thankful that we had such qualified people who were working on it. Since this is the first time that we're all meeting together, I cannot help but just comment on how proud I am to see such a diverse group of community members. The Advisory Commission seems to be full of talented, dedicated, and passionate residents who represent the different races, genders, socioeconomic incomes, sexual orientations, and ages. It is a real cross-section, and I think very representative of Monterey County in whole. So I just wanted to say thank you again, particularly to my own 3 appointees, but in addition to all of the people who put their time in on this. It's a hard job, but you really did it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Alejo.
Yeah, I just wanted to go to a point. I know it's come up in some of the hearings just because we have a significant prison population at Salinas Valley State Prison and at Soledad. So for those who are joining in this meeting, could you clarify how do those inmate populations get counted? They're counted in the census, but for redistricting, they are not counted. And where are they attributed to in terms of the redistricting process? If they don't count here, where do they count?
Dr. Gobele?
Yes, thank you for asking. That's a very interesting question. This time, this round of redistricting, the legislature of California has decided to reallocate inmates to where they lived before they were incarcerated, their home addresses, to the extent that those could be determined. And I believe the California statewide database, which did these reallocations, were able to find the home addresses for maybe around 80% of the inmates. And these are people who resided in California before being incarcerated. So most of the inmates are getting counted, some undoubtedly in Monterey County, but others in other counties, and inmates of facilities in other counties are being relocated to Monterey County. So it's a great scramble to put inmates in places they can be counted. The remaining inmates who can't be allocated, I think, are not being counted. And I don't know any way that they could have done that. I wanted to comment that a previous California State Attorney General ruled way back in the 1980s or 90s that jurisdictions had the choice of counting or not counting inmates. And during the last couple of rounds of redistricting for the county, they were not used to count, to be counted as populations, even though, of course, the supervisors still represented them. But there's a lot of prison gerrymandering that's happened in the past in California and elsewhere that has made some districts have smaller numbers of voting voters and more influence from a smaller population as a result of the inmates being counted, even though they're not able to vote. So this reallocation was California's effort to eliminate that problem to the extent possible.
And just one last question on fluctuating populations in Monterey County. The other one that comes to mind is the university populations. We have some military institutions like the Naval Postgraduate School. So are all those student populations attributed in the redistricting? They are counted in the redistricting process?
Well, they are, depending on where they claim their principal place of residence is. So they could have been going to school in Monterey, but actually being registered to vote back at home, and therefore not counted. Considering some other places, their principal place of residence are not counted in Monterey County. So this is a difficult thing to figure out how to resolve, and I know they've been working on it, but I don't think there's any way of doing it. It's hard enough to get people to be counted, and it's good that they fill out the census forms and they get to decide where their principal place of residence is, and presumably might be able to vote in that location as a result. There are also populations called group quarters, residents of things like nursing homes and other sorts of facilities of that nature. And they get counted in their place of residence if that's where they consider themselves to live and filled out the census form for that location, or someone did it for them. Lots of nuances.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thanks for your technical assistance to make sure we get it right. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Lopez, yes.
Thank you. Just a quick question on that change. You know, I read that at the beginning of the presentation, and I'm wondering what that number difference is in particular for the 3rd district. Do you have a number on what that reduction actually added up to in the population?
You're speaking of prisoners?
Right.
We have actually
prisoners that
haven't
have been
looked at that.
extracted.
That's a good question, and we can look at that using the original counts from the Census Bureau versus the statewide database counts after reallocation. So that would be an interesting thing to discover, and I'm sure we'll look into that.
Yeah, I think that'll be critically important for understanding true growth in the district. But again, I appreciate the work and the expertise. Is that as you get that opportunity, if you could circle back with that, either the committee or us when we get back together in November, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Let's see, if there are no other questions from supervisors, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to ask a question or make a comment? I see Margie Kay has her hand raised, and we will make it possible for you to unmute yourself and make a public comment.
Thank you. Thank you for all the public meetings. I have attended all of them too. I had to watch archived. I appreciate the PowerPoint presentations being linked separately. And I just need to make one correction that Margie Kay has lived for 45 years by the Elkhorn Slough. It is District 2. Thank you. Just for Commissioner Khan's report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other member of the public?
Noted.
Right. Any other member of the public with comments or questions? If you'd raise your hand in the Zoom, we can see you and then call on you. Let's see, I see a hand. Oh no, I'm over in panelists. Okay. All right, seeing no other members of the public, I see that Supervisor Phillips has raised his hand. Yes, please.
Legacy hand to me again, so sorry.
I won't make the comment that comes to mind. Thank you. This has been a really great presentation. Thank you to all the commissioners who attended the meetings and then have provided these reports, and to the demographers for guiding us through and answering all these really great questions that we've been getting from the supervisors here today and all the way through. There's no action to be taken on this, I don't believe. So we will move now to agenda item number 6, overview of the redistricting process timeline and next steps. And this is one where the Board of Supervisors has tasked the commission with holding 2 sets of community meetings, one to explore the communities of interest, and then to talk with the public about various possibilities for maps and how the lines might be redrawn. So that's one of the things that staff is working on mightily now to figure out how to do that, because we know, I think it was Chair Askew who said that the public is really going to be very interested in this mapping process. So I will turn it over to Rosemary Soto to walk us through this agenda item.
Thank you. So as Madam Chair stated, we are gearing up for the second series of public hearings for the draft maps. And these are going to be a combination of public hearings and working meetings for the ARC, where we will be reviewing and discussing the draft map plans. And we anticipate that we will review our first recommended or first set of draft maps October 21st, which is a regularly scheduled meeting of the commission. And we will invite the public, we'll make it, explicit invitation to the public to attend as a public hearing as well. And we are currently working on the logistics for the hybrid public hearings for the remaining 4 public hearing meetings. And so we expect that it will run through the end of October and the first couple of weeks of November as well. On November 20th, we are on schedule to hold our second required joint public hearing of the Board of Supervisors and the Advisory Redistricting Commission. And the purpose of that hearing is to review the proposed draft plan, of which the commissioners would have already reached consensus for that presentation. Shortly after that period, once we have received input from the board, we would invite our registrar of voters to review the proposed draft plan. And it's important for the registrar to review them and provide any input in case if there are any potential issues with the precincts and maps that then are formed after this, the plans are adopted by the board. So it's just kind of like a check and make sure that if there is any input that could be valuable from her before we move forward. We're scheduled on December 7th to then come to the board again as the third and final joint public hearing with the Board of Supervisors and the ARC to adopt the final draft plan. We do have a placeholder for a fourth potential joint hearing on the 14th. This is in the event that there's any potential issues. We're working diligently to ensure that there are none and that we can be finalized and completed by December 7th. But it's always good to play it safe, and let's have another date on your calendars just in case if we need to. And then we will be done and we all go on vacation on the 15th, right? That would conclude our process timeline, Madam Chair and members of the board and commissioners. We welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Soto. Just a quick clarifying question. On October 21st, is that a hybrid meeting?
October 21st, it's not a hybrid. It's a regular commission meeting.
Okay, on Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom. And it will, maybe where I confused you was the term public hearing. It kicks off the series of public hearings, the second series of the 5 public hearings where we will go district by district as we were directed by the board.
Thank you. Yes, no, I heard public hearing and I knew that, but I think between myself and staff, we had been talking about that possibly being a hybrid meeting. So it was just for my information. So great. Thank you very much. Are there any supervisors who have any questions about the next steps? Chair Askew. Yes, please.
I do. Thank you. These dates are helpful, and I just took a picture so we can make sure we're saving that December 14th, the date that I didn't have on my calendar yet. So thank you for that. I did have a question about the redistricting website. And I know you mentioned that the PowerPoints would be available. Would they be posted on this website? There our communities, our lines, county webpage?
Yes, that is our redistricting webpage.
Okay. And so could we make sure that we get links to the videos of the previous hearings and copies of the PowerPoints linked on there?
Yes, they're currently posted, but if
Okay.
you'd like a direct link to that, we can send that to you.
Yeah, perfect. I'm not navigating it, so that's would be helpful. And then you mentioned also the communities of interest mapping tool in one of the first slides. Is that also linked on the website?
It is available on the website. You would just go to the communities of interest tab on the left-hand side, and you will find the survey 123 there. When you go to I think on the home page, there's also a link to the survey 123. We intentionally placed it in a few different spots so that people can arrive and land there in various ways.
Okay, maybe it's because I'm using it on my phone. I clicked through most of the links here, but I wasn't seeing it jump out. So maybe we could just check on that and make sure it's visible for any mobile phone user. That'd be great. Okay,
sure.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, I see County Council Gerard has his hand up.
Thank you very much, honorable chairs and members of the board and commission. I just want to point out something that you'll see coming forward in the next couple of weeks. Historically, the changes to the districts have been adopted by the board through an ordinance, even though state law allows a resolution. So what we need to do, because of the compressed timeline here, using an ordinance would put us past the date that we're supposed to be concluded. So the board will be seeing an ordinance in process over the course of the next couple of weeks that will amend the county code to allow adoption of the maps by resolution so that you can adopt it simply by a resolution rather than by an ordinance. So I don't want the board to be surprised about that. We're in process of doing that over the next several weeks.
Thank you for that clarification. Any supervisors? Yes, Supervisor Lopez.
Thank you, Jane. I see that this is the last item on the agenda, so I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank all of our commissioners who stepped up to do this important work. And I know we've named them all tonight who are here with us, but I also wanted to call out Ron Eastwood, who unfortunately had to step off after becoming ill. And I consider him a friend, and so I wish him well and know that that we all do as well, but wanted to thank him for stepping forward as well to help do this critical work, and also to Simone for stepping in to fill that void before we had the role of the alternates. So as we move forward, I look forward to continuing to collaborate with all of you, and I know that the material we put out can be dense sometimes, whether it's the county or any other commission. And so I want to say that any push we can do on social media would be hugely helpful, and any help you want with that, helping to get it out. We do now have a communications committee within the county. And so helping to refer that over just to get some ideas about how we can jointly message is something I want to put on the table. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Letting us know about the communications committee. We may tap you because the need to do public outreach, we hit it as best we could, but I think repetition and finding even more ways will be really helpful, because I think the public is really interested in this, especially this phase where we get to see the lines move around. And as we have the data available to see, okay, well, if we move this line and include these people, what does that do to communities of interest or demographics of different kinds? So it's really a fascinating time and in a very compressed timeline. So we want to make sure that everyone who has an interest gets a chance to participate. Great. Commissioner Lyle, I see you have your hand up.
Commissioner, I think you're on mute.
muted,
We're not
Monica.
picking you up on the Zoom side.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Brief question. I don't know if it's within reason in the next agenda to have added to the agenda a brief overview from one of the county members, if they can walk us through the website. I have tried to find things and found it a little confusing myself, or I can just keep playing with it. Nothing that would add too much to the meeting, but then I can speak to it when people ask questions. For me, that might be helpful.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners with questions or comments before I open it up to the public? or any supervisors? Any other supervisors with questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public who have questions or comments at this point? Margie K, terrific. We will give you the ability to unmute yourself and make a public comment.
Thank you. All I wanted to say was maybe County Council Gerard got that I was going to ask the question on whether it was going to be all approved by an ordinance or resolution. So I appreciate the answer. If it's possible to have that typed up and sent to me, I'm making reports to a board of directors I'm on. So that's what was a question that was asked at our last meeting. And then thank you. I'll be participating in all the future meetings.
We look forward to that. Thank you. Any other members of the public with questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board or commissioners for any final comments. Yes, Commissioner Carrillo.
Rosemary, how soon are we going to know the dates of the second round of public hearings, the hybrid public hearings that we're having? How soon will we have those dates solidified?
We anticipate having it by the end of the week.
Okay. And we'll have flyers again provided.
Yes, that's a big part of the rush, is to make sure we have all that information to publicize.
Okay,
widely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just for the demographers, is whatever going to go, the tool that's going to go into the website, is that going to allow us to see population shifts and be able to, because I was able to draw a District 1 map that actually is inclusive of most all of East Salinas and kind of even the more outskirts parts of Salinas that go into District 2 and District 4. And it actually balanced out to the 86,000. So it's around the what is currently District 1 in every district. So wondering if we're going to be able to see, as we move around the tool, if it's going to allow us to see moving population. I know we did that a couple of this ones ago, where we're able to see the shifting of population, so then we can end up with equal population. I used a different software that other communities are using, but that was one question. And just one comment, I want to commend the supervisors and the staff and everybody else, because San Benito County decided that they were not going to include the community, and they were actually going to have two staffers and a demographer to do this process. So I am appreciative of the supervisors' leadership and the staff in regards to involving us and keeping us involved, because this is something we have to live for the next 10 years. And communities like San Benito chose to do it staff-driven, no community input other than, the typical community forums or whatever, but that hasn't been well attended. But I do appreciate the fact that we are very inclusive, but also you're sharing the power in regards to drawing those maps. So that was my comment and with my question.
I can answer the question about the online redistricting tool. Yes, it's a very nifty tool. You can move census blocks around, and each census block has all the data in it you need, and the tool automatically combines all the blocks that you put in one district and gives you the numbers for that new district right away. It's just fabulous to be able to do that. It's lots of fun. And in fact, it might be addictive. So I think you'll enjoy using it. And we will be giving we'll provide help on how to use it too, because it has some nuances that may need some clarification for you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gobeling. Good thing. Go ahead, Dr. Lapkoff.
Yeah, did you say that you have already drawn a draft map using a different software program?
Yes, I have. And it actually looked pretty contiguous and kind of the way it is right now, it's kind of a weird shape. It embraces the center of Salinas, and it kind of has these weird arms coming out trying to grab from the outside. But I moved it more to northeast and reduce the back from Miranda, and then grab the little piece of Alisal that Supervisor Lopez represents, and it actually looks like a nice map, and it ended up being 86,000 population. So that's why I was asking, because when I used it, that's all they gave me. They didn't give me anything else except population. But I know in the past we had one that it actually showed more than just population. It showed voting age and showed different things.
So you did one district or the whole 5 districts?
I'm right now I represent District 1, and
So you just
I
did one
started
district.
with this. I started with District 1 just on the my comments and what we heard from the community. So yeah, just one map. I probably I will start doing with the other ones, but obviously it's easier to have the software available where you don't have to purchase it. So thank you.
Well, I was just wondering if you can get us a printout of the district you made, then we can also have that available too.
I can do that. It's in a PDF, so I'll send it to Rosemary.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good thing if this mapping tool is so addictive that we have to be done by December 15th. We'll cut ourselves off. We'll have to go cold turkey on the mapping. Let's see. Supervisor Adams had her hand up. Are you still interested in questioning or commenting, Supervisor Adams?
Actually, it was just wanting to thank the staff. I mean, I think Rosemary and the team that she has just done such a super job. I think it's wonderful. But now that I have the opportunity, I want to ask Sergio, where did he find the map? I want to go there and play with it too.
Yeah, there's a couple software that is online that different communities are using, and this one is called representable.org. So if you go to it, it allows you have to name your community of interest, but it's really simple and really easy to do. So it's representable.org.
Thank you for that. And thank you also, Sergio, for making the comment about San Benito County. I really strongly believe in the community effort. I think that we come up with better ideas and better plans when we engage the community. I'm sorry that they have not chosen to do so, but it just underscores how thankful I am that we did choose to do this process.
Yeah, totally agree.
Thank you, Supervisor. Commissioner Ferrante.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody's giving out thanks to each other, but I just wanted to give a special thanks to you, Madam Chair, for conducting this hybrid meeting. I know it gets kind of complicated at times with people moving around on the screen and such, and also to our supervisors for joining us and all my fellow commissioners. Thank you very much. And it was a wonderful meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, in terms of the map that Mr. Sanchez, Commissioner Sanchez mentioned, well, maybe not at this particular meeting, but in terms of the Voting Rights Act, does it reduce, and I don't know if it has data in terms of, does it reduce the voting age population in terms of the minority communities, and does it weaken another particular area? That is something I would like to look at. Whatever map we come up with, whether it's a particular map that Mr. Sanchez, Commissioner Sanchez is looking at, or whatever the commission comes up with, I know that that's one of the pieces that we need to look at, and that it doesn't, we don't overpopulate a particular district and weaken another particular district. And I'm sure Mr. Sanchez probably was looking at that also. I just don't know the program, and I just don't know what the numbers are, or we might be something that's acceptable. We might have to tweak or something. Anyways, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners or supervisors with final comments? If not, I believe we can adjourn this meeting. I'll adjourn it from the ARC side. Chair Askew, you want to make it official?
We will
From your side?
join in the adjournment of this meeting. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I know for my board, it was a long day. We started at 9 a.m. This morning, and so thank you for sticking it out today. And to all of our redistricting volunteer commissioners who are out here once again on an evening, we appreciate you. We value your service. And to all the members of the public who've participated and continue to remain engaged, thank you for making your voices heard. We're going to hopefully come up with, as Supervisor Adams said, the best options available to us when we include the voices of everyone. With that, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for joining us. And can we take a photo?
An idea for a new video game, Redistricting.